I've been testing out 11 Vieve products over the past couple of months, and I finally feel like I'm ready to sit down and do a review of everything. I'll have timestamps in the description box in case you want to skip ahead to certain products, but for now I'll start with a general brand overview in case you've never heard of Vieve before. Vieve was founded by a Scottish makeup artist called Jamie Genevieve, and it was launched in 2020. Everything is vegan and cruelty-free, and when Jamie was asked in an interview to describe the brand in 3 words, she chose easy, wearable, and high performance. Vieve Beauty is available at Space NK, Cult Beauty, Brown Thomas, and from the Vieve website, which is where I purchased my products. I can't pretend to know a ton about Jamie Genevieve. I am subscribed to her, I watch some of her videos, I've heard her mentioned in the past, but the reason I became so interested in trying these products is because I saw Sophie Floyd do a YouTube video. She did a full Face of Vieve last July, and everything just looked so stunning on her, and the packaging looked beautiful, and it just made me really interested to try some of these products. So I've been slowly accumulating some over time. Like I said, I have 11 products. 10 of them are makeup, and then I do have 1 bath product that I'll save till the end. And I'll start with the only eye product that I have from the brand, which is the 90s palette. This has gold jaguar embossing on the front, and it does have a raised gold plate with the Vieve name, and that is the same with the bronzer duo and with the powder blushes as well. This retails for $59 and has 10 shades, and these shades are giant. For reference, I brought out another palette that I have that has like the largest pans in a palette. This is the Sydney Grace Enduring Love palette, and it still pales in comparison to the Vieve palette. The shades from the Sydney Grace palette are 2 grams, and the ones from Vieve are 3.1 grams. And so this palette is quite large. Like if you put it next to my face, it's definitely larger than my face. And it is the 90s palette, so a lot of the shades are named after things from the 90s era. So you've got Dial Up, VHS, Acid Wash, whatever. And Vieve does sell 2 other palettes that are the same size. They have different color stories. The Essential palette has some warm browns, oranges, and golds, and the Muse palette has more pinks and purples. The reason I chose this color story is because for me it's very unique compared to some of the other shades that I already have. And this was something I was eyeing up at the same time as all of the other cool tone grungy palettes that were coming out at the end of last year. So the Natasha Denona Xenon palette and the Huda Beauty Pretty Grunge palette. This one seemed to match what I would look for a lot better than the other ones. I feel like the Xenon palette was very, very blue cool toned, and it ran very deep. And the Pretty Grunge one was pretty, like I was tempted to get that one, but then I realized that this was on my wish list and this was something that I was going to enjoy a lot more. I do like that the colors are a really nice gradient, but most of the shades aren't so dark that they would make my eyes look smaller or just be too deep for me in general. In fact, this Skimp shade up here, it's a matte, really light gray shade, and I have that on the first half of my eyelid, and I also used it right on my lower lash line to brighten it up just a little bit. It's like close enough to my skin tone, but slightly more brightening, and still has that cool toned aspect to it, so it goes well with everything else in the palette, but it's like the perfect shade for me as like a starter shade or as a brightener shade or as like cleaning up shade. And I just really like the gradient in this palette. I think it does stay very cool tone. It's definitely more gray toned than anything else. They do also sell quads, and one of them, the Noir version, is very similar to this. I think if you wanted a cool tone palette from Vieve but you didn't want to get a giant palette like this, the quad would probably be a good alternative for you. And one thing I like about the way this packaging is set up is, I mean, the mirror is giant. It's very good quality and you can really see everything. And then I saw Jamie in an interview mention that she likes that the palette can fold perfectly in half, and that way she can grab something and then turn around and see her whole face as she's applying the products. And I do like that. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to work with, especially considering the size. For the shimmers, they are not extremely metallic right off the bat. They are softer, and then they can be made to be more metallic if you apply them wet, which is how I typically apply all of my shimmer shades. As for the mattes, they do give some kick up when you apply, even if you use really soft brushes, but they are incredibly easy to work with, especially these types of gray tones. Sometimes those can look very dry and can be hard to blend together on the eyes. I didn't have any problem with these, and I'm even using one of the darkest shades and I mixed it with one of the lightest shades and they blended just fine. A palette that I use all the time because I love that gradient, I love the different types of mattes, is the Too Faced Natural Nudes palette, and I'm really glad to now have almost like a cool toned alternative to that palette. And of course, aside from like really colorful mattes, this is like essentially every neutral matte that I would ever want. I definitely see people leaning back into cooler tones, and I wish that more people would bring this up as a really great cool toned palette. It's really great for that Rockstar GF tutorial that I've been seeing everywhere, where people apply a bunch of eyeliner and then smudge it out with their fingers and then add like a glossy something on top where it looks messy but still really cool. I do think something that keeps this from getting patchy and hard to blend is because there is a gradient. I think them being able to work so seamlessly together makes it a lot easier to work with, at least for me. Something that is very 90s is a sculpted cheekbone. And I like these cool tones because I can also use them on other parts of the face. In fact, I have Phase as a contour shade on my face right now, and then I have a little bit of Dial Up, just a little bit, as my highlighter on my cheeks. Like I said, Jamie has mentioned that she wants all of her products to be really easy to use and high performance, and I think that this palette is a really great representative of the brand. Now let's talk about the 3 lip products that I have. I'll start with the gloss. This is in the shade Cherub, and it is the Lip Dew Glossy Lip Oil. I did a litmus feature on all 3 of these, so if you'd like to learn more about them in depth, I will have them also linked in the cards. This retails for $24 and comes in 5 shades. The original shade is clear with like a gold sparkle, and then Cherub and the other shade Pesca were inspired by their sunset blushes, so they do have like a matching blush to go with them, which is what I have. I also have the Cherub blush. I do think that's really cute, having like a matching lip product and cheek product. I know there are a lot of dual purpose products out there where you can use the same thing on your lips and on your cheeks, but I find that for the most part, I always prefer using it in one way and not the other. So I like that you have 2 separate products with the same color, and so you can still coordinate and match them if you want, but the formulas still work best for the place that you're applying it. Just like the Cherub blush, the lip oil is way more pigmented than I expected it to be. And even on the models on the website, it still doesn't look as pigmented as it does in real life. One thing I really love about this is that it doesn't feel oily or slippery. It feels like a gloss, and it's very nourishing and very long lasting. And the website says that this smells like vanilla, and while I do admit that it smells sweet, it doesn't smell like vanilla to me. I can't put my finger on it, but it's pleasant and it's not overbearing. And I also find that this doesn't have any taste to it either. I don't really have a lot of warm strawberry pink lip products like this in my collection, and so I am glad to have this color in such a comfortable formula. It's not the most winter appropriate color, which is why I'm not wearing it today, but it is something that I imagine I'll be wearing a ton of once the warmer months come, or once I get a little bit more of a tan. Next up is the Modern Lip Liner. I have the shade Brat, which is a warm brown. This is very, very soft and creamy. This is a lip pencil I like to wear when I'm not overlining my lips. I usually go for stiffer lip formulas when I'm doing stuff like that. I also love wearing it by itself all over the lip as its own color. And something I found while I was trying it out is if I do want to line my lips with it and then put something a little more creamy on my lips, this pairs perfectly with Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury. This is Brat, and then this is Pillow Talk. Pillow Talk has just a little bit more of a creaminess to it, even though it is a matte lipstick. The lip liner deepens it slightly, and then the pink that pulls from Pillow Talk just makes them mix perfectly together and makes a really beautiful peachy pink nude for me. And this retails for $23 and comes in 11 different shades. And the last lip product is the satin lipstick in the shade Deep Love. And I mentioned in that litmus feature that this is a very nostalgic lipstick to me. Not this one in particular, but there was a lipstick my mom had when I was little. It smelled the same, it was the same dark brown color, but I just loved stealing her makeup and doing a full face and then using this as like the last step of the makeup. Putting this brown lipstick on just made me feel so adult and grown up, and I can't tell you how many times I did that. My mom probably was so annoyed that I would always steal her makeup and play with it. One of my favorite ways to apply this is put it all over the lips and then use a tissue to slightly pat it down just to make it last even longer. But even if you don't do that, this lasts really well. I did the demo and applied this, and then I went and ate lunch, and I came back and I didn't have to touch up at all. Like, all of my lipstick was still there. This retails for $25 and comes in 4 shades. And this satin formula is great for people who want a little bit of a more comfortable formula, but they want it to last, because I don't find that this is so satin that it's slippery and wears off quickly. Now moving over to face products, and I am so excited to talk about one of my favorite things that I've tried from the Vieve line so far, and that is the Modern Radiance Concealer. I'm in the lightest shade, Light 1, and I love this. On the website, this says it's medium full customizable coverage, and I completely agree. I do think that it has really good coverage, but it's not drying. I have found that some other high coverage concealers I've tried just tend to over accentuate any fine lines, and they look very stark compared to the rest of my face, because I don't usually use like the fullest full coverage foundations. This comes in 20 shades. It retails for $31, and they do have a find your shade option on the website where you can type in other foundation shades that you have that you know you're a match for, and then it'll recommend a shade for you. And based on the shades that I gave, it did recommend this shade to me, and it is a really good match. I also like that this isn't too glowy. It's definitely got more of a soft matte finish, and I also used it as my foundation today. I just put this on the back of my hand and applied it with a sponge. I have done that previously while I was traveling. It's just much easier to be able to bring this and use it as both a foundation and a concealer. I love the finish. I love the color. I love how long lasting it is. I like how it can easily be blended out so it doesn't look too heavy on the under eye. And I also love the texture. It's almost got like a moussey, light, airy, something about it, and I just love how that translates under the eyes. And I've even gotten comments of people asking me like, what concealer are you wearing? It looks great. And it's this. Very, very good. Cannot speak highly enough of this. Just one of my favorite things that I've tried recently. So I do have 3 creamy, glowy products from the brand, and I wanted to talk about them together so that I could help parse out what the differences are. I have the Skin Nova Instant Radiant Primer. I have the Skin Dew Glow Multitasker, and then the Nova Glow Liquid Highlight in the shade Bijou. Let's start with the primer. The 10 ml one is $17, and that's the one that I have. The 30 milliliter one is $39, and then they do sell a 100 milliliter one for $86. The website says that it has light reflecting pigments, and I agree, there is a shimmer in there. It has a slightly golden sheen. It's not sparkly, but it definitely has a glow. And the website does say that this has a tacky finish so that it can be a better base for your makeup, and I do agree. I do think it has a little bit of a sticky tackiness to it. This has a really faint scent. To me, it smells a little bit rosy, which makes sense because rose water is one of the ingredients in this. I tend to get really oily easily, so when I do apply it, I focus it on the outer portions of my face, and I don't really apply it on the center part of my face where I get really oily. I do also enjoy mixing this in with foundations. It reminds me a lot of the Wonder Glow primer from Charlotte Tilbury, which is also how I use it and apply it. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury primer. And then this is the one from Vieve. And they do sort of look the same and feel the same. It's kind of hard to tell because they are such sheer products, but they both have that slightly golden sheen, and they both have that soft texture to them that does feel a little bit sticky so that it'll hold on to your makeup better. I'll likely continue using both of these as foundation mixers or as a slightly glowy primer on the high points of my face. I am really glad to have purchased the smallest size of it though, because I tend to get really glowy on my own, and so I am shifting away from bringing in a ton of really glowy face products just because I don't really need it. Next up is the Skin Dew. I will say this is probably one of my least favorite products that I've tried, mostly because I am just not the audience for this type of texture or finish. So this definitely has the most metallic finish. It is a light gold as well. In that Sophie Floyd video, I saw Sophie mix this with the concealer to make a foundation. If you love a really glowy base, I think that would be great for you. I think that would be way too much glow for what I'm looking for. I would rather mix it with either the primer or with this highlighter that I'm going to talk about next. This one is just too glowy for me. And I was hoping it would be a lot like those Cover FX Moonlight drops that I don't even know if they make anymore. I loved those, but those were a liquid that eventually dried down. This one stays really balmy. In the demo, I do apply it on my cheekbone, but I did eventually powder it down after a while because I don't like how it never really dries down on its own. And also with the way my face is shaped, my cheekbone will touch my lashes sometimes, and so that will transfer if it isn't set down with a powder. So I always have that part of my face set down with a powder. I can't just leave it balmy. It says it's a glow multitasker, so I imagine you can do whatever you want with it, like you can with most makeup products. This just doesn't really match my makeup preferences, my skin type, and so I imagine that this is something more for people with really dry skin who are trying to get a glow and add some nourishment back to their skin. And again, this also comes in multiple sizes. I have the 7 milliliter one. This retails for $13. The 20 milliliter one retails for $27. And then the 60 ml one retails for $52. The last highlighter is my favorite one, the Nova Glow Liquid Highlighter. It's the least sticky of the three that I talked about. This retails for $29 and it comes in 3 shades. I have the lightest of the 3 and I really like this shade because it very much gives like a candle lit glow. So it's not golden, it's not champagne, it's something a little bit between the two, a little more subtle. Helps to give more of that glow from within type of finish, which I'm really into right now. So this came at a perfect time. The packaging is the same for the highlighter and for the concealer. If you can see, the highlighter packaging is more frosted, and then the highlighter has more gold detail while the concealer has more black detailing. And I do like the square packaging. I think it's a lot easier to keep it all on my table without worrying about it rolling away. I wouldn't say that this dries down 100%, but it definitely is a lot more lightweight, and you can apply a really thin layer and still get a beautiful glow. And I think the less product you use, the more likely it is to feel more set. I wanted to compare this with Spotlight from Charlotte Tilbury because it's just one of my favorite formulas because it is really liquid and eventually dries down. They're not dupes by any means, and that's why I wanted to talk about them together, just to give you an idea of what the differences are. So this is Spotlight from Charlotte Tilbury. It has a little bit more pink to it, slightly deeper, and this is a lot more liquidy, and when you do apply it, it can dry down. This is Bijou. If you see, it's just got a little bit more of like a light, candlelit glow. I keep saying that, but I can't think of any other way to describe it. It's beautiful, and I love using it as a foundation mixer too, because it takes the coverage down a little bit. Some of my higher coverage foundations I need to like make look a little bit more skin-like, and this does a really great job of doing that. I wouldn't use the Spotlight as a foundation mixer because that's way too glowy for me, but this is perfect. And then if I wanted to put a little bit on my cheekbones or use it as like a glowy primer, again, it's not gonna be too much glow. This is what the two of them look like when they're blended out a little bit more. Again, this is Bijou, and then this is Spotlight. Not too different when you blend them out. The formulas are just a little bit different. I also really love using this as a cream blush mixer, so if I wanted to mix it with a matte liquid blush to make it more glowy, this works really well for that. I've just been really loving this. I think this is such a nice product. Wow, I actually have been talking and filming for so long that my battery died. That never happens to me.
This retails for $41 and comes in 4 shades. The website describes the finish as soft satin, and I agree, the finish helps it to look more natural. As you can see, I prefer to apply this with a very large, soft brush. That's typically how I apply most bronzers. It helps to diffuse the pigment because I don't really need a ton of color or a ton of bronze, just a little something to bring life back to my face after applying foundation. And even though I typically just mix the 2 shades together, I do appreciate the slight difference in undertone so that I can customize it if I want, and then use the cooler side as a contour. I also really appreciate that this is refillable, so you can keep the outside packaging and then purchase the replacement pans for $30.
And I would also like to mention the packaging of this is really nice. It has a really good click shut, and it just feels very secure. I'm not entirely sure how this is refillable. Like, I'd have to really figure out how to get these pans out of there. I love the gold and black packaging. It looks so sleek. And the top part of it is a little bit textured, and that way I don't feel like it's as easy to get my fingerprints all over it. And the back is gold with a black sticker. I'm not entirely sure where I left off, but I think I was just singing this duo's praises. I think it's beautiful. No complaints.
Unfortunately, I also lost the footage where I talk about the Sunset blush, so I'm gonna do another voiceover. These come in 5 shades and retail for $31, and I do like that this has more of a skin-like finish, but it's kind of finicky because it's so incredibly pigmented. So I apply this very gently with a big fluffy brush and build as slow as possible. I have a short where I really build up this blush because I wanted my cheeks to look very cheruby that day, so I'll have that linked if you want to see an alternative way it applies. The shade Cherub is a very warm pink, so I imagine this blush will really get its time to shine in the summer or when I have more of a tan.
And also, a lot of these are made in different countries, but the powder products that I have are all made in Italy. And the last Vieve product I have to talk about is their Bath and Body Soak. Vieve recently came out with a bunch of bath related products, and I was so excited to get this. I don't really take a lot of baths, so I use this as a body wash. It says the main notes are neroli, amber, and santal. It definitely has a very rich, luxurious scent, and it's one that sticks around and lingers even after I'm finished with my shower. This smells so good. It also isn't really like filmy. It's not oily. It's definitely good as a body wash. I feel like it doesn't dry out my skin, but it does wash off, and that is my preference. I don't like things that linger and still stay on your skin. It feels like it's not actually leaving me clean. Of course, we all have different preferences with that, but I will say that this doesn't leave any residue. And it's got a decent lather too. I don't find like I need to use a ton to wash my whole body. I've gone through maybe a fourth or a third of it, and I've had it for like 2 or 3 months. I don't use it every single time I shower. I do alternate with other body washes as well, so I'm not using it every single time, but I still feel like, especially for the price, it has been lasting me really well. And if I haven't mentioned, this is 16.9 ounces, 500 milliliters, and it retails for $29 US. So I'm not going to rank these necessarily, but I will say definitely my top 3 products from the brand are the highlighter wand in Bijou, the concealer, this is number 1, and then the bronzer duo. And I'll also put the eyeshadow palette in that top ranking too. I think this is so beautiful. Great color story. A really nice addition to my eyeshadow collection because I don't have a ton of traditional cool tones like this. The lip oil is gorgeous. The color is very warm and pigmented, which isn't my exact preference, at least right now. I'm sure I'll love it more in the warmer months. But this is also a really, really beautiful, nourishing formula. And then I would say the products that I feel I like them, but I'm not gonna like run out and get them again at any point, is probably the blush, the primer, the lip liner, and the lipstick. These are all very good quality and I like them, but they're not like my tippy top favorites like the ones that I mentioned earlier. And then I would say the Skin Dew is my least favorite. It really just is a preference thing. I prefer things that dry down. I don't like thick balmy stuff, but some people love that. There are some other things from Vieve that I would love to try maybe at some point in the future. I would like to try one of their cream blushes. I always hear such good things about them. I would like to get my hands on maybe one of those eyeshadow quads, and then I definitely want to try her eyeshadow brushes. One thing I prefer in both face brushes and eye brushes is I want the bristles to be white, and that way I can know if they're dirty or not. If it's a black eyeshadow brush or a black face brush, I don't know what I've already used with it or if it has been used already. I just don't really have the best memory, and so I like the white brushes because then I can also know if I'm getting them fully clean after I wash them. Overall, beautiful products. I'm so glad I got to try these. I'm so glad to have these in my collection. I think they are just beautiful, elevated pieces. I'm very excited to see what Jamie continues to do in the future with her brand. I'll definitely have my eye on the releases that come. I would love to know if you've tried any Vieve products, especially ones that I haven't tried myself. Is there anything else from the brand that you think I should try that I would really love? Please let me know. I want to hear all of your thoughts. I want to talk more Vieve in the comments. But in the meantime, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video.